Hello folks, I said I'd look at this Westminster which was kindly sent by one of the viewers, and I haven't shown it yet. So we've got a Pye Westminster. Don't go buying things like this, however, you know, on a good day they might be worth a fiver for spares. And we're told by the plate here, let's find the camera zoom, what it is. You see, it's a bit like saying Ford Cortina or Nissan Sunny. It does not bring you to a particular variant, and they look the same. This is the single channel one, which a lot are going to be. Obviously it's crystal controlled, and they from about 1967 to about 1978, depending on some of the more specialist things like crossband UHF to VHF repeaters for the ambulance service would still be Westminsters in 1979 because of the boards which are inside them. They're very much modular but wired together. But this is probably around about 1971, 1973. So when I started in business radio, it was 1986. I was previously had a television and audio shop. But, anyway, let's zoom in on this plate, and then you'll see. I don't know why we've zoomed in on the wrong camera. I distinctly pressed camera 1. It's going to be difficult because I don't intend the camera to normally focus at this point. Let's see whether we can manually alter that. Right, so what we've got, because I can't see it on the monitor, so it's W15AM stroke S stroke 1. So W15AM stroke S stroke 1. The serial number, we're told it's 12 volts, and when it was manufactured, the transmit was 71.9125 and the receive was 85.4125. It's absolutely normal, you have a split, so vehicles can't talk vehicle to vehicle, which isn't licensable in the UK, except with UK general licenses, etc. It's about 3 watts. So we'll go inside it in a moment. We'll try it in its state it's come in. Now, the viewer who sent this in has also sent, hang on, okay, so we've got a temporary power lead wired up onto it. This one, let's put the camera back to where it should be. We're going to have to zoom out, aren't we? Yeah. Right. So on the back we've got a connector, and the connector is like that. It's a Jones connector. Anyway, this one's been hardwired, which is, if this wasn't available, is not the way. But one of the dangers is you've got a flying lead here coming out, which goes to the speaker, and it goes to a 2-pin amp connector. They're still readily available, and then they end up getting chopped off, and then people end up putting 12 volts up the speaker lead, thinking that's the power input lead. So that's one of the dangers. It's also had feet on, but it's not a base station, it's a mobile, so you never get the cradle though it's going to fit in. These mics are not suitable for CB. They have a micro switch inside which is single pole. You need a double pole changeover switch, so unless you're very clever at mounting hardware, the impedance of the microphone is also wrong. And Pye had different inserts as to whether the radio was AM or FM. So these Westminsters were available in AM and FM and low band and high band, as we will see. I'm just going to move it off there because it's taking my camera to the wrong focus. Here's the service manual. And you could buy a porter pack for it. You can know how big that is. I think it works £11.5. Oh, and the other thing is, it's a W15, yeah? Don't think that means 15 watts, it's a 5 watt radio. There you go. A quarter pack with the Home Office and Army version. Got an integral aerial and telephone handset for privacy. Power supply. Is it D cells in there? Whatever it is, it's 11 of them. So this starts off by telling us the variants, and that's so important because there aren't that many which are suitable to go onto amateur radio. I mean, I'm going to have to arrange a contact on that because very, very few people are doing AM on either 4 meters, which is what we can put that on, or if it were on B band we could put it on 2 meters. But who's doing AM on 2 meters, you see? So this is your problem. There's an optional version for 6 volts. They did them up to 10 channels. Remember, it's going to cost £35 per crystal per channel. You need 2 crystals per channel, so £70 per channel for crystals. Put in 10 channels, that's £700. Audio output is 2 watts unless somebody's put power up it, and the power output of the transmitter is 5 watts minimum. It may do more than that. So there's your standard version. That's the standard speaker. These speakers are 3 ohms, not 8. Now these SW711s, there's one on my instrument speaker, are 8 ohms, but there's a Pye version of these which is 3 ohms to go with the legacy two-way radios that Pye were producing. So they carried on doing the extension speaker as 3 ohms as they would have been in the valve days. How to connect it up, and then we're going to have a code how to cut the aerial, the cutting chart for what the length is, and they're going to tell you, I am absolutely sure, there's all the squirkies here, they're going to tell you what version is what band. Well, they would have done at one point. Let's see what stuffer sheets we've got. Circuit diagram. Oh, that's exactly the version when it's on a stuffer sheet which is open. So there's our loudspeaker using transistors the likes of which you're unlikely to be able to get today. Power connector goes in at pin 1 and pin 3, and then 2 and 5 need to be linked, and 7 and 4 need to be linked as shown. I was hoping there was going to be a breakdown of what version is what. Well, there is. So 68 to 88 is the E band, so hopefully this plate W15AM S1. Oh dear. I think the one's going to refer to channel, and S probably that means for 25 spacing. Now, it doesn't look like we've got that information. Really doesn't matter, but what I'm getting at is you need to make sure if you're buying something like this that it's going to be not on some band you can't do anything with. I mean, 112 to 136 megs, I doubt that's going to go up into, I mean, that's aircraft band, isn't it, these days? I doubt that it's going to go into amateur, and you're only going to be able to pull the A band down with alterations. Now, we were discussing, or people were discussing on my comments section, some books available. And I already did have one of the 2 books by Chris Lorek. And this covers sets like this. I mean, two-way radios like, I mean, more newer ones. Let's say the new, they're £300 each. You know, 10 years later they're on a radio rally for a fiver because they don't have a resale value. So this does cover the Westminster, and there we are with the author's pile of Westminster. These are available boot mount. I've got a boot mount UHF one, but no control head. I could make a control head, and I would like to do the UHF one and put it on my repeater. Then people would go, they like, I love this. They haughtily say, I'm on a Yaesu flabber bobber what's it, and it's £10,000. And they say to me, what are you? And I go, it's a converted business radio worth nothing. So if I had a Pye Westminster on UHF, that'd be even more fun. So I do have one, but it needs crystalling up and I need a control head. So they are going to cover the Westminster. It's a 5-watt radio. That's a motor phone. We've got a motor phone on 4 meters. We're going to borrow the crystals out of it so we can do this. These are usually about 3 watts. There was the Europa series, and there were 5 watt, 8 watt and 25 watt variations, mainly depending what band you were on. There were UHF ones, and these were always FM. There's the Westminster UHF, and it's a boot mount one. As I say, I haven't got the control head, and it does about 4 watts output for this mammoth set, which is half as big again as that. So this was available, W15 is available as a boot mount or a dash mount. There was a 25 watt version, the W30, and it has valves in the PA. That's the FM insides. Crystal information, control head information, I used to have a Motorola CD100 remote on amateur, and I had to make a control head for that, but seeing as I only wanted it single channel, it's quite easy. Oh, here we go. No, I'm wrong. The S version is 12.5 spacing. I thought it would be like the Maxon things, which were N was 25 spacing, so it's V for 25. So 12.5 spacing is fine. There's the author with a pile of Westminsters. At the time of writing, several amateurs use AM on 4 meters, hence details being given for the W15AM. At the end of the equipment code, it's normally going to be a 1, 3 or a 10, and it is the number of channels. So I was right there, but S. So that's that book. I already had that. But somebody said in the comments that Chris Lorek wrote another book, and I had a quick search on eBay or Amazon or both, and I managed to get a copy for about a £5. And this is actually even more interesting to me. I didn't know about this book, and this covers some newer sets. That first one is all Pye stuff. So we're now moving on to the 290 series of Pye radios. Now this is what I did do training on, and they're crystal controlled. Then the synthesized version of those, which I think are dire, but there is a synthesized version. I avoid it like the plague because they're as microphonic can be. It's one of those, you can talk into the radio by just talking into the lid. Hello, do you copy? it's that microphonic, I don't need a microphone. And he's covering base stations. And it also covers that blue Yaesu S/SMC set, which we were sent by the same viewer very kindly. So they had a UHF version of that which looks like that. That's the VHF one, so it's FM, but it's not going to work if we could get it. If we could afford crystals and put it towards 2 meters, it's going to be a single channel, 10 watts, and cost at least £70 to do. So it just isn't worth doing. It covers some Motorola sets like the MC80, which is crystal controlled, and the MC Micro, which is synthesized. The later M110 was very similar, and then it covers some Storno radios and the Pye PF85 hand portable in great detail. So it talks about CTCSS, and it really is a good book. I took it to bed with me the other day. So there we go. That's those books. But what we're going to do is we're just going to put this Westminster on the bench. We'll see if it actually works. I think we're going to see whether it's got any crystals in it first, or whether it's been ruined. I will just say that all this kind of stuff is very reliable. So for a 5-watt radio, look at the filter in that. So without looking, and I say I have no experience of these, without looking, I would think, oh, it does say receive, it's going to be the audio amplifier for your 2 watts output. So it's going to be a modulator, and I don't think it uses it twice because business radios don't usually work like that. That'll be the modulator, won't it? That'll be the modulation transformer. So you've got a pair of transistors here for the modulator and a beautiful modulation transformer. So your no, it doesn't have any crystals in it. So your crystal is there for transmit, and your receive crystal is hidden. Come on, Mr. 20. It's not that one, surely. That's going to be the IF. Oh, silly fool. Transmit crystal goes there, receive crystal goes there. So your multiplier for the transmitter is here, because it's the crystal frequency. You don't buy a crystal for the frequency you want, it has to be multiplied, and the same applies, and it has to take the IF into consideration, which is 10.7. So with that information, in fact, to be honest, the book here is quicker to look at than the service manual, because I spotted that information. Pye Westminster, so 68 to 88 is the receive frequency that you want minus 10.7 megs and then divided by 2, and that's your crystal. So what is it, 70 point whatever, so 70 minus 10.7, we're looking at 59, then divided by 2, you're looking at something like 24 megs or something for the crystal. And then your transmit crystal, for now this is where there's a difference. For transmit, it's going to be multiplied by 24. It isn't for AM. So has he got that down? No, back to the service manual. 211, here we go. So we're on 68 to 88, so as he says in the book, it's frequency you want minus 10.7 divided by 2. and on receive still transmitter. Isn't a crystal in this, but seeing as we're not ordering crystals, we're going to pinch them out of the temporarily going to pinch them out of the motor phone. There shouldn't be a snag. Anybody who knows that without me going through this quickly and not finding it, just stick in the comments whether the information will be in there, but I can't quickly find it on the video. So we haven't got any crystals in this, so I can't actually make it do anything, but what we can do is see whether the audio amplifier has been ruined or not. So we can connect it to power and see whether we're getting something hissing out of the speaker. So we'll connect it to our famous crocodile clips. I'm sure the person who's linked this up will be correct. Right, so where we are powered up, and what we'll now do is connect that to our extension speaker on the wall. I'll just hold the wires across. Okay, where's power? It should be on. It's not doing anything. That's 2 amp fuse, which would be okay for CB, but isn't okay for these. I'm going to put a 7 amp fuse in. It's not blown, but it's just if we've got it into transmit, which we won't because there's no crystal, but it would need to be a bit more than a CB. Okay, well, I think the thing to do here is to take off the modification and just use the plug. So you notice it's got tantalum bead capacitors. So although there are electrolytics, which of course can play up, a lot of the circuits are tantalum bead, and especially where you've got oscillators and you want absolute stability. You know, capacitors which were 35p each at the time, you can see why these were hundreds of pounds. And there's some desolder braid on here, just to sop up that solder. But in view that we haven't, we'll just use the solder sucker. These are silver plated. Obviously don't want to damage the connector. Oh, it's McMurdo, not Jones. It's lost its spring clip for that side. So we'll try again. This wire must be good for about 15 amps. Power supply on. Right, so now we do have power. We haven't got it going into transmitting. It will go into transmit without the crystals. I mean, it's not going to like do anything. It's not going to transmit, but the relays will operate. Yep. You won't be able to hear that, but when I turn the squelch, we've got a hiss, so the amplifier isn't ruined, which is all good news. But there must be a reason it's not going into transmit. So I'll disconnect the... Let's just open this mic up. Change the glasses, I can't see the corroded screws. And it's actually a good opportunity to open this mic up, and then you can see why it isn't suitable for a CB. I just can't hear the micro switch clicking. And it is normal for it to be a tethered mic rather than on a connector. It's be a 5-pin 180 degrees locking DIN. And don't lose the spring. So you can see here on this one it's not a 1240, it's number of ohms. That's the microphone insert. And you can see it's a single changeover leaf switch. So it is working. So when I press the switch, I've got a click from the relay. And my ammeter goes up to 550 milliamps, not that the thing's going to be transmitting, as I say. So for some reason, that's not being triggered. There's always a possibility it's not being put together right at some point. I can't recall ever having had a situation where this has happened. It's been the same mic on later sets. There's nothing wrong with that switch. there's certainly something wrong with the push to torque, which isn't. It just could be they just could be wear on the bottom here, just sufficient for it not to activate the actual switch bit. Yes, every time it works. What I'm tempted to do, if I had some, we'll just put I think I'll put a bit of tape on the bottom of there. I just think the push to torque bars had that much use over the years. Anyway, I'll do that off camera because I haven't got any tape on here. So there you are. So I will change the crystals over, and that'll be obviously we'll do a video on that, because I've never tuned one of these up in my life. We've got all the information here, and I've every faith that this radio works from what I can see. So there we go. As a look at the Westminster which was sent in. Just does the TX light work? Yes, it does. The receive light's missing its lens, and that's just a power light. It's on all the time. They're little LES lamps. Just turn the power supply off. Back on in the days of the M290 series, which we're looking at in that book, the rep came from Philips, and I said, why, it was Philips then, I said, why are we still putting light bulbs in the current model? Because they fail. He says, it generates service work. I just don't like that kind of thing. There's probably a way to do this. I remember rightly, there are 14 volt LES Lippert Edison screw. Back to the power supply. Pop it back on, switch it to 12 volts. I've no doubt, yeah, we've got a burnt out lamp there. Right, well there we are. That's had a quick look at the Pye Westminster, and so we will have to arrange a contact, and on about 5 watts at 4 meters, you know, we're not going to be looking at many miles, because you haven't got it isn't as good as you might think. If we put another set in the car, I don't think we'd get to Scratchy Corner. We'd probably get Scratchy Corner. I don't think we'd get to the 5 mile point. But there you are. It's not what it's made for. You normally have it on a system with a high up aerial, and you're going to be getting a 16 kilometre range as a business radio system. So there we are. It's interesting, and so once again, thank you for sending that in. But don't all go out buying things like this. We had, I don't know whether you said told you this before. I certainly told it Mr. Chippy. When I was at Nottingham Radio, there was a bit of a rubbishy cellar, and there was no stairs down to it or anything. It had long been filled in, but the cellar was still kind of there, and this was just the front part of the kind of shoppy bit we had. And the floor was collapsing, so Mr. Smith decided that it was time to do a concrete floor. So all these rotten floorboards came out. This was like an 1880s property, and he filled it with Westminsters and Europas and Cambridges and all those kind of two-way radios that have absolutely no value. and there must be 150 radios now concreted in at that premises. So there you go, future archaeologists can dig them up. Thank you for watching the Pye Westminster and Little Book exploration.